Hello, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Matt Anson. Matt is a really old friend of mine. I'm not saying he's really old, but we've known each other a very, very long time. So I'm really happy that he's agreed to join us today. So Matt is a leadership coach, originally from Sheffield, although he's currently living in Ireland and has been forever, but hasn't lost the Scottish accent yet. Sorry, Sheffield accent yet. He felt a calling into coaching after he himself learned about and used tools and techniques such as daily routine and journaling. These enabled him to learn to live without imposter syndrome. I'm not sure how that works, so I'm looking forward to finding out about that. And to overcome anxiety to achieve a number of life goals and dreams, such as launching his own business and writing a book, which got picked up for publishing. This is all amazing. I'm so excited about our conversation today, Matt. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Tam.
No worries. So, I guess where do we start? I don't even know, but let's drop straight in. So, we've talked a bit about daily routines and journaling to help overcome various things, anxiety, and being one of them. But where do we start?
Where do we start? A very good question. I suppose I'll take you back to my journey and my discovery of this. You mentioned there the imposter syndrome and the anxiety. If I kind of turn the clock back 10 years or so, I was probably a huge victim of imposter syndrome, or a huge sufferer from imposter syndrome. And that fed into anxiety. And around 10 years ago, I was going through a period where I wasn't sleeping at night. Everything was causing me anxiety. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning, and that would be it. That would be me awake for the night, mulling over pretty much everything and being unable to get back to sleep. I was in a leadership role, a fairly senior role in the company I was working in, but I never quite felt that I should be there. I felt that I'd kind of fallen into both the sales profession and then into leadership. And I felt I need to do something about this. I need to make a change here. And I happened to be actually traveling over to the UK from Dublin on a business trip. And I saw a book on the shelf called What's Stopping You? Why Smart People Don't Always Succeed.
I like it.
And the title jumped out at me, and that was kind of the start of the journey. That was the first of many books I then read around overcoming imposter syndrome, daily journaling, morning routines that I've kind of picked up along the way. As you said in the introduction, I want to give a bit of this back, because what I've learned has made such a difference to my life, and you listed a few of the achievements I made there, that I wanted to give some back. And that's where I decided to take the journey into coaching, start my own coaching business, which I left my full-time employment last November to launch this business. And as you say, other things that I've achieved along the way, which I always wanted to do, like writing the book. I mean, the book isn't around anything like this. The book is actually around my football team. And I'm a football obsessive, but
we're not getting into that, Matt.
No, we won't get into that. But it was always a goal of mine, and I'm a keen runner, and it was always a goal of mine to run a marathon. But I was always telling myself, I'll never run a marathon. And you know what? I've run two since then. And it's overcoming that mental block and those mental blocks and the voice in your head saying that you can't do this, you can't achieve this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think certainly for our listeners, that wanting to achieve things and feeling confident in and having the guts to start doing things is something that it's almost stamped out of you during the divorce process, because it's an incredibly emotional process. It's damn hard. Even the easiest, even the ones that go through straightforwardly and amicably and don't require the court, are still really, really hard work. And I think you come out of it feeling battered and bruised. And I think the reason that I wanted to have this conversation with you today was to give people some kind of ideas, some starting points as to how to start giving themselves some confidence, building up some resilience. And I know these are words that we hear all the time that may have stopped having any meaning to lots of people, but also to kind of work out why these daily habits are important, and the difference they can make. And I'm going to start with one that really freaks me out, because it's one that apparently high performing individuals have this. I think it's called the 5 a.m. club, where you kind of get up at ridiculous o'clock in the morning to start your day kind of before everybody else has started. So thoughts on that as a plan?
5 a.m. I've heard of the 5 a.m. club, and one of those books that I picked up is a book called, I think,
It'll come.
The Miracle Morning. The book called The Miracle
That's
Morning,
the one.
By Hal Elrod. And yeah, that's all around getting up early. You know what? And I touched on sleep there previously on when I was struggling. Getting a good night's sleep is probably more important than anything else, if you can. So it's 5 a.m. or 9 a.m. Everybody has different circadian rhythms. Everybody has a basic energy and rest cycle that is different to everybody else. So 5 a.m. may work for some people, but other people may find that their journaling is best done at night, or they're best getting rest at going midnight to 8 a.m. and doing the routine at 8 a.m. Now, I would say that the routine is best done in the morning, because it starts things afresh. It's a way of resetting before the day. But there's no harm doing journaling last thing at night, just to kind of get those thoughts out on paper and clear the mind, so that you can get some rest. But certainly I don't agree that the 5 a.m. is a gold and hard and fast rule that people need to stick to.
Good. Right. I'm happy with that, because 5 a.m. is far too early
Absolutely.
for my liking. So you've talked about the routine. So talk me through the routine.
The book I mentioned there, Hal Elrod, he has a routine in there that he calls the SAVERS. It's an acronym. I started with that, but I developed my own. And I think just to make it memorable, I came up with my own acronym that over time worked for me. And my acronym is actually ORGASM, because it's memorable. It sticks in my mind. Nobody forgets it. And this breaks down, and it just happened to, you know what, I was just trying to find an acronym that worked, that fitted, and it just happened to fit. That I knew I wouldn't forget it. So the first, the O stands for organized. So the first thing I do when I start my routine is have a look at the day ahead. I don't switch the email on. I avoid looking at email. I avoid looking at WhatsApp, text messages, etc. All I look at is my calendar and my to-do list. So I use an app called Todoist with my to-do list, and just make a note of what I got in the day, how much time, how many gaps do I have in the calendar? Do I have gaps in the calendar to begin with? And okay, what do I need to do today? The second is, this is where I was trying to segue. So recording, which is the journaling, because I couldn't fit a J into the acronym. And that's kind of really, I would say, one of the two most important parts of this is the journaling. The first thing I do when I'm journaling is my coaching is based on a principle called appreciative inquiry, which is all around looking back at what worked. So focus on what worked, focusing on strengths, forgetting what doesn't work. So talking to your listeners who've just been through that traumatic time is look back at, okay, what did work? What's worked for me as a parent? What did work in the marriage? What did work during the divorce process? But where have I come out stronger? Not what was the bad time, what didn't work, where was the hurt? It's where's the positive stuff?
Yeah.
And doing that on a daily basis, and just looking back at the previous day and listing everything you achieved on the previous day is a great way to start the day. And force yourself to write. So force yourself to write for maybe 30 seconds, a minute. because it's amazing how many things you get done in a day that you forget about. And it could be, I put the washing on, or I took the dog for a walk. It doesn't have to be the big ticket items.
Yeah.
Because did I fill the 24 hour, the 16 hours I was awake with useful stuff that's going to move me forward, that's going to get things done.
Yeah.
And you'll find you'll have a big long list then of, this is everything I got done, and you'll already feel better.
Yeah.
And then then my journaling is really, I have a set of questions, and I'll put them up on my website, and I'll share the link with you on the website. I ask a different question of myself every day of the month. So if it's the first of the month, I have a set question. So that, and they're all questions that I've used with clients. But I ask myself those coaching questions.
Okay.
And there's a natural progression to the questions. So day one follows day two, follows day one, etc., etc. But there's a natural flow throughout the month of, what do I want to achieve this month, and then how am I getting on with those goals? And by the end of the month, it's reflecting back on the end of the month. So today is the 31st, as we're recording. It's looking back to say, okay, what did I get done in May? Did I achieve everything I set out to do on the 1st? But again, looking at it from a positive mindset of, yes, I did. I did. This is what I set out to do. Okay, I didn't do this, but this is what I learned from not being able to do that, or this is why I didn't do it in a positive way.
Yeah. So steps forward towards the things that I might not have actually got to the result that I hoped for, but at least I've taken some steps forward, or decided that wasn't that's not
exactly
for me right now.
Yeah. Oh, and another question in there is, what have I learned? So what did I learn from not doing that? What did I learn from maybe not succeeding in the way I wanted to?
Yeah. Okay.
And then we moved on similar, it's still part of journaling because I still write it down. It's the G is gratitude. So I always find 5 things and try to do different things every day, 5 things that I'm grateful for. And it could be, okay, I had a nice cup of coffee. Where did the coffee come from? But there's certainly a mental benefit to looking at gratitude and to a gratitude journal.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I used to do, I didn't manage 5. I think I was doing 3 a day. I did that for quite a long time, but I was doing it last thing at night before I went to bed. And actually, it's quite helps you calm the mind, put you in a positive space to sleep, which I found it was something that I preferred to do last thing at night to doing it first thing in the morning, and massively helped my own anxiety. And it's something I've talked to other members of my family, and they found it a positive reaction from that as well. I think like seeing the positives around you and being grateful for good stuff that's around you, like it. I'm sure there's something about neural pathways that somebody will tell me, but it seems to focus the mind on the good stuff that's going on rather than the negative stuff. And certainly when you've been through divorce, there's a lot of negativity around. Even if you're feeling positive about the future, it's still it's a difficult time. And I think if you can each day just focus on the good stuff, even when you're having the hardest of days, it's certainly a good thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason I went for I was doing 3, and I don't know. I know. I just didn't find. I just found I wasn't kind of taking it as seriously as I should, and I wasn't. I was kind of skirting over it, so I forced myself to find 5. But again, and like you say there, Tam, it's about what works. So if the end of the evening works, that's great. So this is my routine.
Yeah.
But it's about what works for whoever's doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what are we on next?
So we're up to A. A is affirmations. Now, again, going back to the original, the How I Wrote Affirmations, there's a lot of stuff written about affirmations, and you mentioned your neural pathways there. I'm a keen follower of a guy called, and I've got a mental block again. Give me a sec. I forgot his name again. I always do this. There we go. I'm a keen follower of a guy called Martin Seligman. He's written lots of books on optimism, and he's a big proponent of appreciative inquiry that I've already spoken around. He's also the chair of the American Psychological Association, and part of that, and one of his opinions, is that the whole affirmations thing doesn't work in the way that you hear a lot of kind of the Tony Robbins talk around. Tell yourself you're great. Tell yourself you're the greatest football player on earth, and you'll become the football player on earth, the greatest football player on earth. Seligman debunks that.
What's he called again? Sorry.
Martin Seligman.
How do you spell that?
Seligman.
Okay. I've never heard of him, so yeah.
Yeah, no, he's written a series of books around learned optimism and teaching yourself to be more optimistic.
Okay, I like that idea.
They're really good. And he's also done one around, and one of the reasons I got into this was with my daughter was having a little bit of a negative period in her life. And there's a lot of work in there around learned optimism for children, helping children to become more optimistic. And it's been great for her.
Fantastic. So affirmations. So we're not saying I am the world's greatest footballer.
No. So what I say is really, it's more of even though I use the word affirmations, it's more of a reminder.
Okay.
So it's more of a reminder, like I say things like back myself more, or believing myself more, rather than I am and trying to project something. It's more a reminder. One of mine is focus on the task at hand, because I'm very easily distracted by the next shiny thing that comes in. So I tell myself every morning, focus on the task at hand. And then when I find myself getting distracted, it pops into my brain.
Okay.
Rather than it be, I'm going to be the greatest coach, or I'm going to earn €1 million, €1 million in the next year. It's more kind of in the moment.
Okay. And is this something you tell yourself a certain number of times in the morning while you're brushing your teeth or whatever, or is it something you've got written on mirrors? How do you fulfill your affirmations?
Yeah, I just repeat it to myself. So as part of this routine, the routine that I have is essentially sitting down. The first thing I do in the morning, the organizing, recording, gratitude, the affirmation, all of this is done within a 30-minute period. So I have the affirmations written down at the front of my journal. I change them from time to time if I need to. And because I've got the journal there, I can just turn to the front and I read them to myself. I repeat them 3 times, and that's it. That's that step of my routine done.
Okay. Wow.
The next part is the S is study. So I try to read 10 pages or 10 chapters, or a chapter, depending which is, if they're short chapters, I'll go for 10 pages of a book that it's going to, usually a business book, but it could be a psychology book, but something that's going to help me move forward, something that's non-fiction, that's going to help me move forward. And then the last part, the M, is meditate. So I use an app called Calm. You may be familiar with. There's Headspace as well. There's a load out there. I used to use Headspace. I now use Calm. I prefer Calm, but other apps are available. Say, and yeah, that's how I round off the morning routine. Is that meditation.
Right. How did you learn to meditate? Because an app is all well and good, but it's not that straightforward meditating, is it?
No, one technique that I was taught was that you may have heard of the Wim Hof method, which is...
That's getting in cold water, isn't it?
No, there's a breather. He's part of that, but it's more, it's breathing in. So it's counting in for breathing in, holding, breathing out, holding. So basically like box breathing, you breathe in 5, 5, 5, 5. If you can get into the ability to do that then start using something like Calm. I do find Tamara Levitt on Calm is a very good meditation teacher. If you're starting out, it's a great place to start, but then progress on to box breathing and Wim Hof, etc.
Okay.
But even if you only ever use Calm, it's better than nothing. It's still.
Okay. So is it? Let's kind of dig into this a little bit. Are we talking about? Because I know when I've heard about meditation, it's about emptying your mind, and my mind, when it starts being empty, will have vicious thoughts, not vicious necessarily, but like there'll be thoughts coming in from like, why haven't you put the washing on? What have you got to do tonight? All the nonsense that fills our brains. It's very difficult to actually empty your brain and for no thoughts to come and interrupt.
No, it's impossible.
That you're doing.
Yeah, it's impossible. And the idea of meditation, the reason I do meditation anyway, is it goes back to that focus piece of it's the mindfulness, it's concentrating on the now. The mind wants to be busy. So if you are closing your eyes, and whether you're listening to music or just breathing and a thought pops in, it's very easy to berate yourself and say, no, I'm supposed to have an empty mind. That defeats the purpose of meditation. Oh. Meditation is around, if a thought pops into your mind, note it. Oh, there's a thought. I always kind of picture them as little balloons coming in. So little balloon comes in to say, you need to take the dog for a walk, or you need to put the washing on. Excuse me. Let the balloon float off, push it away gently, but be kind to yourself while you're doing it. Don't think I should have an empty mind. I shouldn't be thinking anything, because it's completely irrelevant.
Right.
You cannot clear your mind of thoughts, because your brain is while you're awake, your brain is busy. We have something like 60,000 thoughts a day. So you can't completely empty your mind. Yeah. So give yourself grace. You're there to relax. You're there to, I always think of it as kind of cleansing the palate before the day begins. You're there to go, okay, man, I'm just going to focus on the now, and then I'm going to get stuck in. So if a thought pops into your mind, you think, I really need to do that straight after this, fine, push it to one side. And when you finish the meditation, go for it. The key is, I suppose, not to follow the thought. And that's, anybody who suffers from anxiety will know that's where it's going down that rabbit hole of following the thought down, and it keeping you awake, or it distracting you from whatever you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So your routine is more, we've talked about it's a morning thing. So so from the organized bit, it sounds like this is from the point at which you're sat at your desk beginning work. Doesn't sound like it's a morning routine that's like, I get straight out of bed and that's me, which, I've heard some morning routines. It's like, right, first thing you do is drink a glass of water. You don't touch your phone for X amount of time. You then have a cold shower. I can't think of the other things, but various different things that are literally kick in at the second you, I was going to say bounce out of bed, but if it's at 5 o'clock in the morning, you probably wouldn't. But
no.
So talk to me about the timing of it.
The reason it works for me, and again, Tam, it's about what works for everybody. The reason it works for me is my rest and energy cycle, my circadian rhythm is for a 6:30, 7 o'clock start is as early as I want to get.
Yeah.
I have to get the kids ready for school. I've got to take the dog out. So it depends on the day. Okay. If I don't have to get the kids ready for school, I have that cold shower and come straight in the office. Usually I will get it done before I take the kids to school, so I'll get the kids ready. While they're sitting down having their breakfast, I'll then come up to the office and do the routine.
Okay.
So it's about making it work for you. It's around, again, it goes back to what we were saying there about the meditating. It's about giving yourself grace and permission. The idea isn't to be too hard on yourself to say, I must be up at 5 a.m. and do this. It's, I must get this done. And sometimes I find if I've done the school run, after the school run is the best time to do it, because I've got the blood pumping in a bit. We walk to school with the dog. The blood's already flowing, and then I get stuck into this, and then I get on with my day.
Yeah.
Again, that's why I start with the O. It's let's get organized. If I don't have time to do this and commit to this properly, I'll come back to it later. But the key is for me that I don't start looking at work stuff until I've got this done, and then I find I'm much more effective.
Okay, so it's not, I mean, I guess even if you're doing these things at night, if that's what works for you, it is just about getting these things in as good a routine as you can, and and not beating yourself up if something comes and drives a juggernaut over when you were supposed to be when you were supposed to be doing it and what you were supposed to be doing, because life sometimes happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't. I keep using the phrase, but give yourself grace. It's not meditation or routine. It's not around beating yourself up if you don't do it. It's around making yourself more resilient, more confident, more positive.
Yeah.
So if you find that you're beating yourself up for not doing it at 5 a.m. or beating yourself up for missing one of the steps because you, as you say, life happens and you didn't get to do it, so be it. You'll get back to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or even if you do need to do a shortened version of it, that you maybe pick one or two and do, okay, today I always make sure that I do the meditation and the journaling. For me, they're the two key parts. So if I miss the gratitude or miss the affirmations, so be it. But certainly doing the journaling and meditation, if I don't do them, that's when I can feel myself later in the day becoming more anxious. That's when the voice on the little demon on my shoulder starts talking into my ear, and saying, "You're going to fail. You're not." Here's the negative thoughts coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we started this conversation, you talked about journaling at night to empty the thoughts, get the thoughts in your head down onto paper. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, that's actually something I've got out of the habit of doing, but it's certainly something I used to do. In that, again, particularly if I find when I was finding myself having those sleepless nights, it is a question of, right, what do you want to think of, what's going on in the head. A lot of the time I would do kind of freehand writing, where I just kind of train of thought writing almost, where I just wrote down whatever was in my mind. It didn't matter if it was nonsense, but just to get it out of my mind onto paper. So it goes back to the clearing the mind, and take a lot of cleansing breaths and try and get to sleep, because if you don't get them out on the paper, then they're still in there and they're still going to be churning around while you're asleep.
So trying to write down what's there and work through it on a piece of paper almost, rather than trying to deal with it in your head. Yeah.
And I suppose the idea is to try and move it. It goes back to those balloons when you're meditating that I was speaking around, trying to move those thoughts onto a paper, close the book. Okay, I'll come back to that in my morning. So I'll come back to that in the morning routine if I need to, when I'm doing the journaling. But now the important thing is I need the sleep. And more studies and more science that I'm reading is increasing the importance of sleep. I mean, it used to be the kind of Margaret Thatcher and people like that. You say, "Oh yeah, you can survive on 3 or 4 hours of sleep," but I'm not saying this was a direct cause. She ended up suffering from dementia. Whether that was a cause or not, I don't know. But certainly the studies are showing that there is an impact on not getting enough sleep.
So it feels like a health requirement, like drinking however much water, 8 glasses of water, and having 5 portions of fruit or veg. It's one of those kind of things, isn't it, that's becoming built into us. You talk a bit about goals and about these processes helping with imposter syndrome, which almost feel like business related, work related things. Do these tools and techniques work for people for whom haven't, they've not got goals set, but they're in a position where they're feeling a lack of confidence because of the things that have gone on in their lives. They're feeling like, you know, I mentioned resilience at the beginning, but they just feel like they need to build themselves up again before they can even get to the point of goal setting.
Absolutely. I mean, goal setting is great if you know where you want to go. And a lot of clients that I work with come to me because they don't know where they want to go. Sure. They don't know what their goals are. We say they could, in a few occasions, they've been through traumatic experiences. They may have lost their job, and they've come to me because they don't know what to do next.
Yeah.
And there is this big thing of having goals, but it doesn't mean you have to have a goal. A picture or an image of where you want your life to be in 3-5 years' time is probably all you need, but it doesn't have to be specific. It doesn't have to be, I want to earn £1 million in the next 3 years. It doesn't have to be that specific. It's okay, this is what I want, this is how I want to feel in 3 years' time. I want to feel more free. I want to feel less anxious. That's a goal in itself.
Yeah, I'd never thought about that. I was kind of thinking about kind of whether goals need to be realistic or not. But if you're tapping into a feeling that you want to have,
mm-hmm.
then that kind of has to be realistic, doesn't it? Because you're kind of in charge of your own feelings to an extent, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's more of a vision than a goal. A goal is, like you say, they're very specific, very realistic. But a vision is, I want to feel more in control, or I want to feel less anxious in a year from now. And it's still reasonably tangible. If you look, and again, if you're doing the journaling and looking back and reflecting, you know, on the 1st of June 2022, I set the goal that by the 1st of June 2023, I will be feeling less anxious. How do I feel now when you do that journal? Yeah. Put a reminder in your calendar.
Yeah.
Am I moving forward? And again, this is where journaling helps, because even if you're improving by 1% every day, you may not notice it.
Yeah.
But in 365 days, you'll be looking back and you're right. There's a huge difference and a huge improvement.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, actually, to look back at where we were and recognize and acknowledge and give ourselves a pat on the back for how far you have come, even if it's not exactly where you wanted to be. You still will move forward by following these steps, won't you?
Yeah. And the good that it's a really important point you made, that if I look back at journals that I made 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of my goals are completely irrelevant now. They're very different now. I wanted different things then. Life happens, life changes, and you kind of have to roll with that. If you get fixated on one goal and then you achieve it and you're not feeling any better about yourself or about your life, it was a bit of a waste of time. We all want to be happier. We all want to feel more in control and more happy. And if that goal doesn't get you there, then is it worth chasing in the first place?
I've been listening to the High Performance podcast with Jake Humphrey and Professor, I can't remember his name.
David Clutterbuck, is it?
No, it's not. It'll come back to me. Damien, something or other. And they were interviewing Johnny Wilkinson. So, you know, as you're aware, as a massive England rugby fan, he is my god. And he was talking about, you know, kind of reaching goals, and actually it's kind of a bit of a problem to actually get to the goal, because if you get there, you're a bit like, oh, what now? So
what do I do now? Yeah.
Johnny scored the winning drop goal for England to win the 2003 Rugby World Cup. For those of you who don't follow rugby, just short explanation for you there. And you know, that would have been Johnny's childhood dream as a kid playing rugby, playing number 10. And kind of that would have been his aim, to win the World Cup, to score the winning points, you know, all the admiration that would have been around him at that time, and actually, to be fair, throughout his rugby career. But actually, it didn't have the effect of moving him forward. It actually had the effect of making him feel depressed, like, because it's like, well, I'm there, so what now? You know, it's like, almost, it's not about reaching the goal, it's about the journey that you're on to take these steps forward. So the goal itself, actually, in a way, could be completely astronomical, something that you are never ever going to do, because actually, and I'm sure when Johnny was a kid, he probably thought he was never ever going to score the winning points in a rugby World Cup. But you know, it is that thing about, well, actually, you want to make it something that you're never ever going to get to, so that you keep pushing yourself on and keep taking those steps forward in a way.
Yeah, and it absolutely, and it also comes back to one of my affirmations is focus on the task at hand, because that's part of that. Like, focus on today, focus on this moment, because that's all that matters. The here and now really is all that matters, because things will change. Yeah. And you may set a goal for 3 years from now, but life's changed, and if you do achieve that goal, what's next?
Yeah.
Whereas if you constantly kind of just have a vision of, I want to be happier, or I want to be less anxious, that's something you can keep working towards. You can always be more happy, you can always be less anxious, less worried.
Yeah.
So keep working towards that instead. And if you feel that the goal that you're going for is going to help you with that, then great, but don't be too kind of wed to the goal.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get it, then you're going to measure yourself against that and put your kind of your worth against that. And if you do achieve it, then what's next?
Yeah. Yeah.
So enjoy the journey.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Matt, we're coming to the end of our time together, sadly.
Oh no.
I just wondered if you had any final thoughts for our listeners today that you wanted to get across before we finish up.
Well, I would say is try, particularly the journaling and meditation. If there are two things that you're not doing at the moment, I would strongly recommend them. They've had a huge impact on my life, and then anybody I work with who has done the same, the feedback has always been positive. So the rest of it is great. The rest of the morning routine is great. Try and get a morning, or like you say, an end of day routine into your life and stick to it. Find what works for you. Journaling and meditation, if you only take two things away from today, are those two things.
Fantastic. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. If anybody does want to get hold of you, work with you, speak to you, either the hell out of you, we will put links in the show notes, but do you just want to give us a quick rundown as to where people can find you?
Yeah, the best place to go is to my website, www.mattanson.com. So mattanson.com. And you'll find me on there. There's a way to book some time with me or drop me an email. But that's the best place to find me. And it's very, because my coaching niche is around sales management, it's very sales management focused, but I have clients on across a variety of different roles and different things that they're working on. So don't let the sales manager piece put you off if you're not a sales manager.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Matt, thank you so much for joining me. It's been brilliant to talk to you today.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me.